Hello and welcome to the Kismet podcast. My name is Carina and today in the studio, I am joined by the lovely Dylan Verrier. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, pretty good actually. Pretty excited.
It's so nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Good to be here.
Oh, in our gorgeous fancy studio. It's so nice.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it makes me feel fancier than I am, which I appreciate.
You are so fancy. Are you
Thank
joking?
you very much. Yeah, it's all a mirage and all fake, but as long as it's working, I think that's all right.
I don't know about that. You have some of the best fashion sense of anyone I know.
I got 3 sisters. I was obliged to, otherwise I would have just been picked on ruthlessly. So
Oh
it was
my
actually
gosh.
a survival strategy more than anything.
Incredible.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yay! Before we jump in and have a chat about all of the brilliant things about who you are, could you tell us what you do at Kismet and what your role is here?
Yeah, sure. So I work in the acquisitions team. So specifically, we're looking to acquire plan managers at the moment. And so with all of the recent NDIS reforms and changes, it's a very interesting space. I think there's a lot of unknowns about what's going to be happening. And of course, we can form our own opinions about it. But right now, when I'm speaking to a lot of plan management owners who've been growing their business for a long time, it's so much of a knowledge share, and ideally we can come together and figure out what is actually going to go on, and in the future, if it looks like it's helpful for them and they want to sort of move away from plan management, then that's what I'm there for.
How good. And how long have you been at Kismet?
Been in Kismet 2 years, in this role only since January, but about 2 years, yeah.
How good.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm really looking forward to having a chat because I did some LinkedIn stalking. And it's, yeah, because as one does, like it's so.
You're supposed to, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
well done, highly curated, beautiful. I would love to hear about your journey on how you got here, because there's this really beautiful through line of the work that you seem to have done in the last sort of 10 years of community building and community focus. And I would love if you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So kind of come full circle when I'm in the health sector again.
Yeah.
I went to university and did an exercise physiology degree.
Oh, I actually did not see that.
Yeah, so it says human movements, and that's what it used to be called. So exercise science, exercise physiology, it was kind of all looped into the same thing. And
Cool.
from there, I realized at the end of the degree, I enjoyed the science of it and I enjoyed it for me, but not necessarily as something that I enjoyed teaching. And so I only applied little bits and pieces of it post-uni. And from there, I then moved into, eventually had a role with WorkCover Queensland.
Yes, so you and Josh have that in common, because
Really?
he also works with
Oh,
WorkCover.
great. Yeah, I was there a couple of years, sort of first job out of uni, taught me what it meant to be in the corporate world and what did that look like. So that was an interesting awakening, trying to learn all of that. And from there, I moved into sales, actually, which is sort of where I've been for a very long time. I was a pharmaceutical rep and then medical devices, so surgical equipment and all of that sort of stuff. And I was in that for, I don't know, maybe 4 years. And a good friend of mine he had an idea for a business. And I was in sales and he's like, can you sort of help me put this together? I'm looking to raise some money. And from there, we actually ended up successfully raising, and they said, look, as a part of us being able to give you money, we want Dylan to come over full time. And from there, I would look at sort of like my boss, and I'd look at our CEO and the type of work that I was doing, and in particular the growth ceiling that I saw on it, and thought that I wanted to be able to do more. I wanted to be able to grow more, and I decided to take the leap. I think maybe 28, single, no dependents, and some of my really good friends at the time who had run their own successful businesses. And I'm like, look, I've got this good job and it's stable and all of these things and it was going well, but this opportunity's come up and like, what should I do? And they said, look, in a year's time, if it all falls over, do you think you could get a similar job again? And I was like, yes. And they were like, what you will learn in the next 12 months in running your own business and working in a small business will trump just about anything you will for years at where you are. And so if you ever are wanting to come back and do something similar, you're going to be in such a stronger position. And so you've really got nothing to lose. So I did. And so I jumped from there. And then from there, so we were trying to build like a It's called an LMS, but it's the software that universities would use to communicate with their students about classes and stuff that's going on.
And this is the business that you co-founded, plus communities, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And so from there, we moved on from universities, mainly because it was a very slow industry, and
they old.
Yeah. It was interesting being in universities that would talk about innovation more than they would maybe take a gamble on some of it.
Yeah.
And for us, I think we had a lot of hunger and wanted to move a lot sooner. And so an opportunity came about from moving from that actually into running some music festivals, of all things.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
What was that like?
It was a lot of fun, actually. So the technology that we had was about, organizing your life and your coursework, but it had like an operational element to it.
Cool.
And so then we just started reaching out to festivals and went, do you want to use this to run your festival? And then we did. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. And that was the events arm of this
That was
business,
the events
right?
arm of that one, yeah.
How cool. So what type of festivals and music things
So
were you
we
involved in?
started with like a lot of smaller folk festivals and
Great.
art festivals, and then a few like a robotics event at a university, and all these sort of like different things that were, I think we had like 5 different things that we'd tried in just sort of like a few months. And so that was cool for us. Like, it was moving really quickly. And then somebody that I'd met, we actually weren't in that space for too long because we got an opportunity from the largest aged care and retirement provider in the country, where they said, we're looking to digitize our retirement villages for both our senior residents and also communicating with the families. And a friend of mine who worked there said, what you're building is actually kind of what we want. And so we went from music festivals into retirement homes in about 6 months.
What a pivot.
What a pivot, right? And at the time we're like, what are we doing? This looks crazy and it looks mad, but we just had far more utility with the product in that sector, and so much more meaning as well, being able to connect the residents with their communities and their families and providers and all this sort of stuff outside of just helping people have a good time on the day. So that was really cool. And so did that for a couple of years. And by that stage, I've been doing it for 6 years, and I felt like it was time for me to learn something new and do something different from there. That business is still running, and people running it are unreal. And
that's great.
Yeah, so be interesting to reconnect with them shortly about aged care and retirement. And
it's so interesting because so much of what you're saying about the business that you built, there's so many overlaps between Kismet and Explore, which is so wild.
Yeah,
that's so creepy. Not creepy, but like it's just
creepy.
real. It's Kismet.
It's
if we want to,
exactly.
But like seriously, there's like this really crazy crossover there.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's bizarre, right? Particularly the direction that we also want to go in the future, and what does all that look like?
Totally. And what I find really interesting, Dylan, is the work that you've done within the aged care space, in terms of you were an advocate for getting young people interested in working in the aged care sector, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, a big part of it was also maybe reducing a lot of the stigma that was around retirement villages and aged care. And I think there's even seniors themselves would go, I don't want to move into an old person's home.
Yeah.
And then you'd go in there and you realize that they're more social than I am. The reason that they needed our app is they had 200 plus events like a week, and they're like, we can't do this with pen and paper. And you meet all of these people that happen to be seniors, but you'd meet all these people, and all they wanted to do was just make their lives a bit easier and communicate and connect. And so it was really cool to be able to, go in there and hear all of their stories. And I was sort of doing the circuit at the time and speaking in a lot of events, because what we were doing was new to the sector. And quite often the conversation would be about, can seniors even use technology? And the answer was like, of course they can. And then it was just like, next question. And like, here's all the data to support that they can and that they love it and they're thriving with it. You just needed to take that little bit of extra time to sort of show them what the steps were. But once they sort of figured it out, then it was just like everybody else.
You would have been a hit.
It was a lot of fun.
You would have been a hit with the older folks.
It was great. I wasn't so much of a fan of all the happy hours that they had every day. So you go in there for training and they're like, make sure you stick around for 3 o'clock. I'm like, what's at 3? And then, so I learned that you couldn't drive to these trainings.
Happy hour is early.
All the time. Yeah, sometimes it was at lunch. I'm just like, I got actually stuff to do today. But Yeah, it was great.
Hey man, seniors know what's up. They
really
live a
do.
good
Yeah,
life.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So I'm really curious to learn more about this through line that you've had. There seems to be a lot of interest, and the way that maybe you've kind of gravitated in your career has been there's been a lot focused on sort of advocacy and sort of community focused things. And I'm curious why that's something that's been is that something that you've deliberately gone out of your way to create or be a part of? Why is community so important and interesting to you?
I think I'm a lot more intentional about it now, and that word intentional seems to have its own stigma attached to it, but I'm intentional. And and so much of my life I've always enjoyed a lot of different things, and so I've always had communities. In high school, I won the best all-rounder award in grade 12, but I joined a musical. I was the number one athlete at the school that year, and then I was playing the saxophone, and I did all of this different stuff, and I had all these different communities around me, and the work naturally sort of went that way anyway. Maybe I was leaning into my strengths without even really knowing it. And when I moved to Sydney about 5 years ago, and I started from scratch. Well, I had a couple of friends here, but I started from scratch in a beautiful way because I love getting out there and meeting friends. And so I joined the surf club, and then I played 2 seasons of mixed netball, and then I kind of said yes to everything for a year, and I was able to form a community just by doing that. So it's something that I've always enjoyed doing for me. And then when you realize that so many other people crave that kind of community as well, and if I've got the ability to be able to help facilitate that as well, then it's something that I just enjoy, and it's fun. And I think being able to help people do that in a way that's meaningful to them and not forced and fun at the same time, I mean, I get a kick out of it anyway. So
it's interesting. It seems to be so many folks find it really challenging, don't they?
They do.
And so it's
absolutely.
really interesting that for someone who is so naturally good at building community, it's sort of sometimes I imagine you would forget that it can be like something that comes so naturally to you that you're so good at doing in such a unique way that's to you is something that I'm sure a lot of people would look at and go, that's not something that comes naturally to me, that going out into the community and just kind of joining a club or joining a group. Or I do have a very important follow-up question.
Sure.
What was the musical that you did at high school?
I did 2.
Oh my gosh.
Right, and so I grew up in a little country town. So as you can imagine, musicals, particularly being a male, there wasn't a lot of competition to get any role
I
at
don't
all.
want you to dim your light though, Dylan.
I might need to. So the first one was called Back to the 80s, and it was just a throwback in grade 10.
Great.
I had really long hair there, and I just I gelled it all the way back to this beautiful, I had an afro as well, this beautiful permed looking mullet thing. That was incredible. I'll have to find some photos to share
Please do.
around.
I would love to put one in.
Yeah. And then in grade 12, there was Othello the Musical, which was its own thing. And being one of the lead males, I was also one of only 3 males to audition. So pretty tough competition.
Hey, one of 3 is not bad, mate.
I don't think so either. Yeah. Right. And so I got this singing part, and I played the saxophone. And
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I did for 10 years.
Do you know that Mark played the saxophone?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did we just start a band?
Seriously?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I reckon there's a few mean triangles downstairs.
100%.
I think so.
You know Adam Dicker would be an enthusiastic triangle player.
I think we all are.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. That's what this room's for, part-time. We'll just come up here and jam.
That sounds like the perfect dual use of this room.
Yeah.
How good.
Yeah. But just to round that out, so played the saxophone, so I know what music should sound like.
Sure.
I had this singing role, and one of the music teachers there was I was like, look, no embarrassment here. I'm just not a good singer. He's like, look, just give it a go. Just give it a go. Why not? We'll see what happens, and who knows? I'm like, all right, well, just no dramas, but I'll give it a go. We did the song. It's a 3-minute song. He's on the piano, and I'm singing. At the end of it, he goes, maybe we should just give that to someone else. I'm like, no worries. I completely agree. And so then that role was given to someone else, and I had this microphone on the stage, and then I just
savage.
spoke to. Oh no, I knew it. I knew it. Like I was a confident enough kid and I knew my strengths and weaknesses. And I was like, do you know what? I've already been given enough for this musical. Let's give it to someone else. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're doing the old school Singing in the Rain thing where you were the Lena Lamont.
it was horrible. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
But it was fun though. So that's all that really matters.
I mean, that's the whole point of high school and community theatre.
I think so too. Yeah. And then, but the parents have to clap anyway. So
They must.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
obliged to, and it made me feel great. So
Oh, good for you.
thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that. That's I
Yeah.
would love to see the back to the 80s
It's-
mullet afro
it's all about the
situation.
hair. Yeah. Yeah.
So, alrighty. So for someone who is so focused and intentional about community building and having these relationships that you're really connected to, are you a strong goal setter? Is that something that you seem like pretty on to?
Yeah, some areas of my life I'm amazing, and other areas I can be looser than I would like. And I think sometimes it comes down to, could I imagine, or could I possibly believe that the life that I actually want could happen? And for so many areas of my life, I absolutely believe that. And there's some other areas of my life where I think I'd like to be stretched a little bit more with that. And when I'm talking about some things that I think could be more concrete is, you know, what happens if that amazing thing did actually happen? And why don't you actually imagine that it could? And why not put it down on pen and paper anyway and actually shoot for it? And I think in the past I've been too loose with that goal, and maybe that was a self-protective mechanism that I was employing without really realizing. But I was also selling myself short on some of those things, and definitely in the last 12 months, in particular the last 6 months, I've been a lot more concrete with these goals. And quite often one of the major things I realized with these goals is actually just putting a date to it. And I've set about doing a whole string of challenges kind of over the last 12 months. And there's all these things that I wanted to do, and they were sometimes just non-starters for whatever reason, or I would imagine the end state and like, oh, this maybe that won't actually happen, or maybe I won't even like it, without even starting and trying. And so instead of getting to the end and catastrophizing that it doesn't work, it's like, well, let's just give it a crack. And I'd like to think I'm an intuitive person, and so I learn more by doing. And so right now my idea of the goals is just commit to it, put a date to it, and give it a go. And then if I've ever failed at it, like I realize most of the things that I've enjoyed in life is actually when I've really just tried.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite like athletic events that I'm like the most proud of, I wasn't even close to the top 10, but like the effort that I put into the prep and doing it. And if I realized that I wouldn't have even tried because I wouldn't have won, then I would have taken away like the best thing that actually happened to me. And so I'm employing a lot of that at the moment in my life and just giving more things a go. And it's been awesome. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Good. What's on your list at the moment, if you would like to share?
Yeah, sure. So I've always had a really strong relationship with exercise from both. I've just enjoyed it and like sport and done a lot of that. And what it's done for me from a mental health perspective as well. I'm very much someone who lives above the positivity line, but I actively work at it, and it's something that I pride myself on. And I realized when I was 14, and I had my heart broken by a girl. Oh, she didn't love me. 14, devastating.
It's very hard.
It's very hard, yeah. And I went on I was training for whatever run at the time, and we had like a particularly hard session that afternoon. And I realized that after this run, like I actually feel way better than I did beforehand. And so I had this like toolkit that I could use, and exercise could have this influence on my life. And so earlier this year, or later, so 12 months ago, I set about in setting goals and timeframes. There was all these physical challenges. Last year was it was a 10K swim in June in winter, which was...
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a decent one.
An ocean swim?
Yeah, I was from Bondi to Watson's Bay, so kind of...
Oh, that's no joke.
Around the Sharky a little bit. And then I did a really big like ski paddle. I'd never done paddles. It's like a really long kayak.
Okay.
And
you're sitting?
You're sitting,
Okay.
yeah. So they're like the ones they race at the Olympics, like the really long ones. It's like 6 meters long.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd never done that before, and I was like, well, that looks cool. And so I did like a 111 kilometer race for that. That was end of last year.
Holy moly, Dylan.
Yeah, it took me like nearly 15 hours. It was a long time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Where was that?
It was in the Hawkesbury, and it was like overnight, and it was awesome actually.
That sounds terrifying.
It was great. You were in complete darkness. Like you had these glow sticks at the front and back of your boat. I had this headlamp on to start with. And then everyone just like didn't use lights because it was like a full moon, and so it was just like pretty surreal to be out there.
I just got a shiver. That sounds so beautiful.
Yeah.
How many people were like? So it wasn't just you; there were other folks
so
around.
it was an event, and it's been going
cool.
for 60 years or something like
Wow.
that. And there would have been maybe 150 people in total. Some were in teams and some were solo. And my wonderful girlfriend was in the support crew, and I think I had like through gels, I had about 1 kilo of sugar in like 48 hours. Like I think it was 1 kilo. So
yeah,
it was pretty
that'll
wild.
keep you awake for the 112 Ks or however long it was.
Exactly.
That's mad.
Yeah.
How good.
Yeah, and then I've got another one self-imposed. Next Saturday, I'm doing a marathon on the soft sand in Bondi.
A full marathon
Yeah,
on sand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
I
that'll
am
be pretty
cheering
tough.
for you.
It's pretty tough. Yeah,
Your
yeah,
poor calves, your whole
Yeah.
body is going to be.
yeah. It's been
Whoa.
interesting. Trying not to get injured for the training for that more than anything. And
Wow.
so from that one and tying it back into community, I decided, my dad's been struggling with mental health quite a lot lately. And so I'm doing something for fundraising for Mensline, and I'm bringing people from the surf club I'm part of and all mates coming down and be a part of it and just have a bit of a conversation and also just run some laps with me so it doesn't hurt as much. And so it'd be cool to get the community around for something like that, so I'm not just doing it for myself. So
That's awesome. Wow.
yeah, thanks.
Gosh, that's so many different versions of. So there's a couple of folks at Kismet who are big into running, and that's their event, and they, like trail running or marathons or half marathons, and it's all in the very much the one direction of this particular activity. Yours are so varied.
And intentionally so. Yeah. I kind of got to a point where like I've always liked exercise, but I felt flat and I needed something different. And so I played a lot of sport in my life, and I kind of missed that real competitive edge that came along with it. And so I just started doing, and they're designed to be very different. However, it's not all physical. There's some other ones like the next one I want to do is actually a dance challenge.
Tell me everything.
I haven't figured it out yet, but I usually do these things in like 2 or 3 month blocks.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to get like a bunch of lessons, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, whether I sort of just film it, put it on socials.
What genre of dance?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I just want it to look cool.
Okay.
So whatever that looks like, I'm not sure. And eventually I want to be able to get to a point where I could do some sort of a routine. So whether do I just dance for my friends, or do I do it in the Kismet office? I don't really know.
This is thrilling.
Yeah,
this is thrilling.
So
Okay, we can totally workshop this. This is going to
yeah.
be so fun for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just start by picking a song that you
I think
really
so.
love.
I think so too.
And then I feel like you'll
Go
just flow
there.
from there,
Yeah,
Dylan.
Yeah. I like just generally grooving and dancing, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So, but in terms of just like trying to do something that makes me uncomfortable, and particularly if I've got to perform for my friends, I don't want to be shit at it. So I'm going to do a good job.
Oh gosh, it's so wholesome.
I know. It feels like I'm a kid.
100%, and you're forcing your family and cousins to watch you
my
do.
My sisters used to do that all the time. We used to sit at mum and dad, like, you got to watch this routine. We've been practicing some sort of like gymnastics all day, and you got to sit through my performance. So I've actually been training for this my whole life now that I think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is just a culmination of years of hard work.
I think so too. Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. So that's probably the one I'm probably the most nervous about, because I think I've always done sport and that sort of stuff, but I don't think I've ever really like performed like this and come and watch me dance around a room. So, but we'll see how it goes.
This is excellent.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for you. I'm throwing so much positive energy at you and your ability to create a stunning routine that makes you feel really happy and joyful.
Yeah, I think so too.
How good.
Yeah, I'm excited, I think.
Dylan, I want to talk to you about the cards that you have in front of you. We had a quick chat yesterday in preparation for our record, And I'm very interested to know what you've been working on. So could you talk us through what this is all about?
Yeah, of course. So this comes back to one of the other challenges. I didn't want it all to be physical and the dance and from a creative outlet. And so when it comes time for building community and being able to connect with people, and all too often I find, so I'm also a part of a men's group, and it's been, with the particular type, it's called the Mankind Project, and it's been running for 50 years or something. It's an international sort of thing, and they've got set structures in terms of the way that you can get people to open up, particularly men. They need a little bit of safety and certain types of encouragement to make it a bit easier, and quite often it helps people get to where they need to go because you do certain things, what they call is like creating a container, which just means you feel safe and you kind of give them permission to actually start to express how you feel, whether that's in your body or in your head and everything else that goes along with that. And I realized that when you would sit in those circles, the way that you would get people to open up the most or share the most is you never actually are allowed to give advice in these things. That's part of the rules. Like, that's how it works. You only ever ask questions. And so then people arrive where they need to on their own as well. And for them to be able to even start to open up as well, when other men lead with vulnerability and honesty and just how they're actually feeling, you watch in the circle that everybody continues to follow however it was that that first person went. And so coming back to just being able to have permission to be able to talk about how you're actually feeling and what's actually going on in your life, the concept of better conversations come about through better questions is what I started leveraging with. And so I've called this deck of cards.
Oof.
Don't judge the design. No. I'm working on the new version.
Oh yeah, go on. Give us the old TikTok, like
old,
get ready with me, hands behind it situation.
Sexier, I promise. Please don't get attached to that.
Now, may I have one so I can do a prop? I won't read it yet, but
yeah.
I'm just going to do the whole like, with the product stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So it's
Beyond the weather.
Because I don't want to talk about the weather. I want to know how you're actually doing. And as a real life example, and I was telling you yesterday, you were an experiment on this actually at Christmas time, and so were some people here at work, and I was doing this sort of stuff with my friends anyway, just trying to think about some questions that I would want to be asked or that I would want to ask someone else to be able to connect with them in a way that doesn't necessarily have to be like too deep, too fast, but it at least encourages creativity and people to be able to open up and express themselves in a way that was more meaningful than an example of what happened at Christmas. And I find people, they default to this not because they don't have anything interesting to say, but I find often because they don't want to hold the microphone and they don't want to take up space, and they don't necessarily feel like, whether they feel like they might be oversharing or nobody would be interested in listening. So people tend to play it safe, and they talk about how cold it is. Or at Christmas time, we're like, oh, where do you live? Oh, yeah, isn't there construction going on? Oh, yeah, and it's like the traffic. And not because anybody wasn't interesting or because they didn't want to talk about anything else, but maybe people didn't feel like they could go there and talk about something different. And I'm sitting there looking at all these super interesting people that I've only just met, and a whole bunch of some other new starters as well. And I was like, these people are obviously here because they're unreal, and they've done something amazing to be able to get to this point, and we're better than this. I want to know more about them, and I don't want to know about what they think about traffic, and I don't think they want to know what they think about traffic. And so from there, I just started asking some questions that are in that deck, and then the entire tone of the conversation just continued to change. And we're there for an hour talking about stuff that I think mattered to all of us way more, and it wasn't about getting more personal or deeper. It was just something that I think was a way that we could all connect a lot more. And so it was cool to realize that I could do it with my friends and at work, and then I've sort of continued to do that.
This is really, really cool. It feels very on brand, feels like such a something that people don't say anymore, but it feels very on brand for you and
Thank you.
and what this is about. I think the deck is lovely. So this is something that may I pick a card to read? Is that okay?
Go for it. Sure.
So I'm just going to go with a green one just for fun. What's something small that actually matters a lot to you in friendships? I think somebody remembering the little things, which obviously is there in the title, but I have a lot of my friends live overseas, and thank goodness for WhatsApp and Marco Polo and, Facebook Messenger. But I have, Jesus, I miss my friends, but I have God damn it. I have a friend who I adore, Steph, and she's in the UK, and I really miss her so much. I literally sent her a WhatsApp video note yesterday because I was at St. Ali around the corner, and we went to uni not so far from here, and I sent her a message and I was like, dude, I'm at St. Ali and I'm thinking of you. And it's like things have changed about it, but it just like instantly brought me back to when, we were 20 and we were at uni, and we were spending $6 that we didn't have on coffees that we didn't need. But she's like the most incredible person at remembering details. And she still uses a physical diary, because she's like, she's like, I'm trying to find a version that works for me that is analog, that is digital, but she's like, I can't find something and she just loves it. And so she writes everything down in her diary. And it's little things like she's been incredible with my kids and, remembering their birthdays and big things that are important. But she'll also message me and be like, hey, how did it go in Melbourne? Like, how did your podcast record go in the new studio? And hey, you said that you were going to go and try this thing. How did it go? You know? And that's, that means so, it's that classic thing. Like, I don't know if you're a Will and Grace fan, but Steph and I talk about this all the time, where over the years it sometimes can be really difficult to find our way again to kind of feeling back in that groove of it feeling easy, because we're so far apart all the time. But it's those little things of like, Grace has this conversation with Will when they're not living in the same house anymore, where she's like, you gotta call me when you go off cheese, because she brings over all of this cheese for a wine and cheese night. He's like, oh, I'm not off cheese. And she's like, you got to tell me this shit. Like, you got to share the small stuff with me. Yeah. And so that's like something that, we've grown to get good at over the years. But I mean, fuck, where do we invest? That's And
so I think in using that scenario with that friend, and the way that I would design these cards is that you could do it with a stranger, you could do it with your family, you could do it with people at work, and even something as simple as I went to this a birthday of a really good friend, and his sister was there. I met her a bunch, and she's been really lovely, and we were sitting down at this table, and we were both like invested in whatever the conversation was, and we naturally just ran out of steam in terms of where the conversation was going, and not that neither of us were interested or invested in trying to like get to know each other, and even for myself who does all this sort of stuff, and I'm like, where do we go? And like I sort of lost, and so I actually just recalled one of those questions and whether it was something similar to that, and obviously just pick the weight of the room and the tone of where you're going, and then it set us off on this whole other trajectory that meant that we were able to connect a whole bunch more. And I just kept sort of remembering those sorts of questions. And even if it's for people that we know, or if we're trying to connect with people that I think particularly if they live far away, because you don't want to just catch up with them. You want to continue to grow your life with them.
Right.
And the only way you can continue to grow your life with them is by doing something new or experiencing something new or learning something different about their perspective on the world or whatever that looks like. And so I'll give you a few of those to try with that friend, because instead of just going, hey, like, how was Saturday? Yeah. What have you been up to? How can you move beyond that in a way when you're not experiencing things together? Yeah. And how do you do that? Just through some questions.
I feel like it might have been this time last year, or honestly, I don't know where I'm at in the timeline of a lot of things at the moment. But there
2029.
What is going on? But there was an article that went viral, and maybe you came across it being invested in this type of work in this area, in this industry. But this woman wrote a piece that went viral that essentially was saying, don't catch up with your girlfriends, or just in general, like with your friends, like exactly as you're saying.
Seen it, but I love
I'll
it
have
already.
to try and find it and send it to you, because it feels like it's so your jam in that literally exactly as you said, the trap that we fall into as adults when we all get busy and you see someone twice a year or like once a quarter for a catch up, right? That you're booking in January for the rest of the year so you can work your social calendar around is you've got to create those new memories and create those new experiences, because yes, it is important to sort of hear about the day to day and yes, okay, how is your mum? Like if they're unwell or, you know, of course, like that's interesting and important and certainly something that is worthwhile talking about, and also creating new experiences helps you stay more connected and want to catch up again. And I would love if you were interested and keen, I would love to incorporate these into the show.
Yeah, please do.
And do like the...
Hopefully you enjoy them. Yeah,
because the boys, the Imperfect Boys, I don't know if you listen to their podcast, but it's Hugh van Cuylenberg and but anyway, they've got a really fantastic podcast, but they have a segment that they do called the Vulnerability House. and they've got a stack of questions that are similar. There might be the Esther Perel cards or...
Yeah, they're fantastic.
And so this is definitely something that I think would be really useful and interesting to use on the show. And also what I was going to say is that to your point earlier about giving people permission, we're so anti feeling awkward. And isn't that so interesting that you've done so much work to curate these beautiful cards and to curate conversations that are really focused and intentional, and that there's something deep in us that really like wants to run from being uncomfortable, isn't there? Or that the thought of somebody else being uncomfortable. And so that's really interesting that, this feels like a really lovely way of being able to kickstart conversation. Yeah.
So like the Esther Perel cards are unreal, and I've used them before, and I love them. And there's another one called We're Not Really Strangers, which is also fantastic.
Oh, cool.
And, I really do like them. I think the gap that I saw is that quite often those things were reserved for people that probably already knew each other, or they would get like really quite deep, and maybe it took a fair bit of a warm up to be able to get to that point, and the social drop in of when I would think that they would be appropriate to maybe bring out based on the tone of the room required a very specific sort of setting, and love them, and I've used them a whole bunch. I just saw that there was a gap for different sorts of settings, and I wanted to create questions where you could go as deep or as shallow as you want for almost all of those questions. And naturally what happens is the more that you talk about them, you just go deeper anyway.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you said about the piece of being able to sit there when somebody says something uncomfortable, and that was something that I used to really struggle with. And I spoke about this positivity line, which I still do pride myself on, but I actually really, really struggled to go below that when somebody was having a tough time. And I used to think the gift that I had was to cheer them up, and quite often I would do everything that I can to cheer them up. And there was one moment when a friend was going through a particularly tough time, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and he was going through some pretty heavy stuff, and he came around and I could see that he was sad, and so I was like, I want to make him laugh, and I want to make him happy. And we ended up having a fantastic dinner, plenty of laughs, and as soon as he walked out, and my girlfriend says, like, at the time, can I just talk to you about how you think that went? And I was like, oh, it was amazing, he was super sad, and now he's super happy. And she's like, absolutely, and I love that about you, and that's fantastic. Just one thing I want you to consider is that he was sitting in something that he maybe not have shared with anybody before. And and as soon as he told you that, the first thing he did was change the topic. And I realized I changed the topic because I couldn't sit in it and I didn't know what to do. And it made me feel like a really bad friend. So I started practicing. Asking people tough questions, and then just sitting there being uncomfortable and realizing that it's just like way worse for that other person. But it was something that I needed to get better at. And it was a tough lesson, but it was a really good one. And I think with those questions, I often find to get the best out of it is I would ask a question and then I would just lead and go, this is what I think. And then you can set the tone for the whole room.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's probably my best friendship skill I've ever learned. There we go.
That's a tough lesson to learn in the moment.
Yeah, but important. And I look back on that moment fondly in terms of what that was like. And me and my mate were solid and we're great. But yeah, it was an important thing I need to learn.
It's that overarching thing in so many of us of wanting to make it okay.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult thing to override and just sit in something.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. But what a gift that you were able to learn in that moment.
Yeah. So it was important and I got through it and now I see it as a superpower. So I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you find Sydney as a community-based city? Because my experience of Sydney, which is a small amount, I've never lived there, but I find it to be a bit tricky as someone who's not from there to feel any kind of it feels like so cliche to say that Sydney's shallow because I don't think I believe that. I don't think that I genuinely think that Sydney is a shallow place. However, I do definitely feel like it feels like a more challenging city to get to know in a way, like as a person, right? It's like it feels like a harder nut to crack in terms of really understanding Sydney and how you can live there in a way that's not performative. And I'm curious what your experience is like there.
The opposite. Yeah. I think maybe it's because of where I live.
Yeah. Because you're in Bondi, right?
I live in Bondi, but the majority of people that live in Bondi aren't really born and bred Bondi, which means that at some point everybody was the new kid.
Right.
And what that means is when the new people come on board, everybody was like, that was me recently-ish. And so I think people are a lot more welcoming but it's also a really big community-based group. There's 600 swim groups and run groups and book clubs and that sort of stuff.
Fun.
And similarly to when I said it earlier that the first year that I arrived, I just said yes to everything. And I think if you're open to those sorts of opportunities, you're going to be able to find your community and your friends and those sorts of things. And so I think from maybe people who've lived there and grown up there, maybe they're not as open. But it's a city of 5 million people, 6 million people. It's not all closed off. Pockets of it will be, but there's plenty of opportunities to say yes to some cool stuff that of people that want you to come in.
How have you found Bondi post all of the difficulty of last year?
Yeah.
How has that been as a community?
It's been amazing. Yeah, I think as awful as it was, it happened like 30 meters from my apartment, like all the triage center, and I'm part of the North Bondi Lifesaving Club, and the majority of them were like first responders, and everybody who lives in Bondi, has a story about what happened on that day. I heard it. My girlfriend saw them, whether people were running, whether people were trapped inside somewhere or they were first responders. Every single person that lives there has some version of a story of how they were connected. And on the other side of it, I've never hugged so many strangers. I've never looked so many other people in the eye that I've seen just around all the time. And then you have this look of community with each other, and obviously as awful as it is, the reason I said amazing is because of how everybody's come together on the other side of it. And obviously it's awful that that's what it took to get there, but I'm wanting to see the silver lining in all of this. I'd like to think that everybody's just like a lot closer as a result of it, and so much more there for each other and supportive of each other. And it was pretty scary for everybody. And all I can say is that the community just feels like so much tighter as a result of it. Yeah.
We saw each other maybe a week or two.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh then.
Afterwards, which was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that I imagine you in a little lemonade stand. I know that it wasn't a lemonade stand.
It wasn't far from it. It wasn't far from it, yeah.
But you had mentioned that you'd set up a little table and chairs out the front of your apartment and had a little sign that said, like, here to chat or here to listen.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just speaks volumes of the kind of person that you are and how you wanted to help. And what was that experience like for you?
I loved my community before, and I love it even more after. And so the triage center was actually outside my house, and so there's cops and ambulances and stuff everywhere, and I just didn't want to sit inside. And it only happened 18 hours beforehand, but things were back open, and at least you could walk around. And I feel like all I felt is that I just wanted to be in my community, and I didn't really know how. And so I got my notebook out and wrote, "Here to listen," and I'm like colouring in between the lines. 6-year-old me would be embarrassed about how awful it was.
That's lovely.
And then I just sat out front with just like some sticky tape on this table, and I brought my backpack with my books and some snacks and some water. And then people just like dropped by throughout the day, and people that were involved, friends of friends that got shot, and some of them were first responders, and there was just everybody around. And there was even some cafes across the road that I'd only ever walked past them, and like you sort of give each other a wave, and they like brought me food and just came out to chat. And just
Dylan.
I didn't know what to do, and sitting inside didn't feel right, but being in the community did. And I'm super glad that I did that. Yeah. It was pretty fresh when I last saw you, that's for sure. Yeah.
What an incredible place to live.
Yeah, it's amazing. How many more tears can you get out of me today?
Honestly, I was not expecting for that to, oh, golly gosh. Hello, it's Carina here. If you've enjoyed today's episode, may I ask you kindly to take a moment to like, follow and subscribe to the Kismet podcast on your favourite streaming app. It really does make a huge difference. Every follow and every share helps us bring these stories and conversations to more people. And that's what this show is all about. So if something resonated with you today, pass it on, send it to someone you think might like it. And just a very big thank you so much for listening. Okay, back to today's episode. So you took a career break before Kismet. And first of all, I love that you've got that on your LinkedIn, that you specifically point that out. And you went traveling, right?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Yeah, so after my startup, I realized that there was so much I just didn't know. I'd never worked in tech before, and so I ended up working for a couple of large organizations, and then the last role I realized it wasn't for me, and I wanted something different.
Yeah.
And instead of launching into the next thing, it was like, let's take some stock and actually think about it, and let's think more about, I'd obtained all these skills, and I'd learnt so much, and I was really looking for the next thing that came about with a lot more purpose, and trying to understand what that looked like. And so much of what it is that I was seeking then, and I continue to seek now, is for earlier on in my career, I felt like I was chasing, or I needed to be pushed to be able to achieve. That was my own internal working mechanism. I'd be pushing me to do something. And I realized that what I actually wanted, and what I think would be more sustainable and exciting, is actually something that would pull me or would draw me in. And in trying to understand from a values alignment, and also just the type of work itself, in terms of like what it is I enjoyed and what it is that I was good at, and also what's the bigger mission. That's what I wanted to try and figure out. And so in that time, I went to South America, because also like I'm in my mid-30s. When else am I going to be able to travel for 6 months? And I was just like, let's go. And then I came back, and I went to a party, and I was learning to DJ at the time. Well, not yet, but I wanted to. And
Should speak to Nick.
Yeah, well, we'll put a set on together.
Yes!
I reckon, yeah. At one of our offsites, actually, I brought it out. Very much an amateur. I'm no good. I'm sorry for anybody who had to listen. And the person that lent me the first set of decks to learn on was an investor of Kismet.
No way!
Yeah, so they're an investor of Kismet, and she was like, so like I went to return the decks. I was about to get my own, and she's like, so like, what are you doing? What are you looking for? And I was like, oh, looking for some more meaning. I've been in the healthcare space and tech. And she's like, boy, do I know someone for you? And then introed me to Mark, and it kind of all just went from there in no time. And so, yeah, and that's how I ended up here. So
Man, I don't know how many times I can hear stories that are similar to this and still be wowed by how cool it is that people made their way. Like it's spooky.
Yeah, it is spooky.
Great. It's good spooky, you know?
Yeah.
It's like this witchy shit that works out in the way that it's supposed to. It's so cool.
I think so too. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a pretty fun way to get in. And
Did you enjoy South America?
Yeah, it was unreal.
Yeah.
I quickly realized, so always like nature in general.
Stunning, yeah.
As does everybody. And so, you know, I was traveling solo the whole time, and, you know, I would go to these cities and they were amazing and beautiful and wonderful. And I would, you know, do the walking tour on the first day, and, you know, you would go to that bar and you would go to that cafe. And then after kind of like a couple of days, I was like, all right, well, what do I do now? Like, I don't want to keep drinking and I don't want to keep eating. Like, I want to explore a little bit more. And so I found myself like really, really drawn to nature. And so South America is just like unreal when it comes to like the hiking and all of that sort of stuff. So I love that. And that was really cool to be able to, I don't know, maybe 7 multi-day hikes over there in all these different countries. And quite often I would like set out on my own. And in terms of like a way to make friends and traveling solo, on the trails was always like the best way. And quite often, my Spanish was horrendous. It still is. And I'm sorry, South America.
El baño. That's all I know.
Oh,
toilet.
God. Barely. Yeah. And so I'd be on these trails, and quite often other people wouldn't speak English, but we would spend the whole day together and we'd have an unreal time. And so, yeah, it was awesome. I loved it.
That's so great. Yeah. How do you feel about luck?
Oh, I'm lucky. Yeah. And I like to think, what am I going to do? Think that I'm unlucky and then I'm going to feel unlucky for my whole life? And I've always kind of thought that, and I think, you know, there's an opportunity if you feel lucky, then you're gonna look for luck, and you're gonna think that you are, and if something bad happens to me, I'm not gonna go I'm unlucky, or it's more like that's just something that was unfortunate that happened to a lucky person. Yeah, and then I also heard like there was research that's come out that's backed it up, and pretty much if you just think that you're lucky, you end up identifying all these like unique opportunities, and you just naturally look for stuff, and I think life's going to work out better. But I also just think it's more fun to live the life as lucky, and like
absolutely,
I would be miserable if I didn't. So why would I do that?
A life of abundance, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. You're onto it.
This has been so lovely.
It has been, right?
We've got a couple questions left, my friend.
Far away.
This is so lovely.
Yeah.
So we've heard about the goals or the things that you are working towards for the rest of the year in this pretty specific way, which is very exciting. But do you have any larger goals that you are looking to or wanting to achieve over the next maybe longer term, like 12 years, okay. 12 months, 18 months, like 2 year kind of thing?
Yeah. If we're looking short term, I'm pretty invested in what's happening with Kismet, and that's unreal. And I think we're doing some amazing work, and I truly believe that, which is what a cool feeling.
Yeah.
Something to do with the conversation and the cards, and the end state of what I want that to be is.
Yeah, tell me.
I'll build a deck, and I'd like to be able to sell it and create more conversations, and I think that'll be like really fun. But really what I'm trying to do is create a movement, and the movement actually comes down to, you know, better questions, create better conversations. And I think if we can all feel just that little bit more connected to each other in a way that's actually meaningful to all of us, then I'm just going to be so much more happier. And so it's not about the specific questions that I have. It's the idea is that maybe one of those questions then sparks the next 10 with everybody else, and the impact that that's had on me with relationship with my mom, relationship with my dad and my sisters and my girlfriend, and people at work as well too. And I can see the power of it with just so little effort that's required in it. And so I've already been like running a bunch of events just with friends, and last one I ran was like with 20 people. What would it take to do one with 2,000? And then, then how do you have this then ripple off? And so I'm not too sure what the end state is yet. And in the past, that used to feel like such a restrictive feeling. If I didn't know how it was going to end, I had a lot of non-starters, such as like, where would this go? And all I know is I'm just following the next thing that feels great and feels right, and listening to my gut and paying attention to what that says, and putting that into action, which has been extremely helpful to get these things going. And the perfect example of those cards or on a micro scale is when I ran an event that was launching those cards for the first time just with friends. I said the number one thing that I want from this is when you leave today and you go off into your evening, it was in the morning, and you're at dinner with whoever or doing whatever, and someone says, what did you do today? And you go, well, I went to this event that a friend of mine put on. It was about asking like better questions. And they go, oh, what sort of questions were they? And I want you then to tell them what the questions were and see what that does to the conversation and the energy of the room. And I think there was like 25 people that were there, and then 15 of them came back to me and said that actually happened, and it changed the entire trajectory of the evening and what would happen from that. And I was just from one question that they shared. And so the power of that, and ideally at scale and whatever that looks like, that's something that I would love to be able to continue to experiment with. And because in the meantime, like the journey of it's like unreal. I'm having so much fun doing it.
You're the best person for the job.
I certainly hope so.
Yes.
I'm going to try. What I realize it is that I don't want to be the top of the pyramid. You got to get in early. I don't want to be the top of the pyramid, but I want to be like a part of the circle. And so it's not about me, but how do we get that tool to do the work on its own?
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome. With all that being said then, at your 80th birthday party, where you've got all of these incredible people around you that you've had phenomenal conversations with over the years, and you've just collected this group of special humans, what do you hope is the sort of through line of things that they say about you in their speeches?
Maybe that I was incredible at collecting legends and then putting them together. I think something like that. Yeah, I would like to be the connector. Yeah, I don't want to be the thing that everybody necessarily talks about, but I want to be the excuse that they had a brilliant connection, and I just happen to be that little spark in between them. And that's what I think I'd ultimately love for people to say that I was really good at. You're the Lego bit. I think so. Yeah.
And what about little Dylan? If you could go back and have a chat with 10-year-old little guy, what would you say?
What would I say to 10-year-old Dylan? Keep playing. Yeah, it's interesting how much inspiration I draw actually from what I was like back then, and how open I was to trying and doing all of these different things, and if anything, double down on it, I think. Yeah. Instead of trying to narrow your focus too much on, say, one sport or one idea, like try all of it, and if it's fun and you enjoy it and you're learning, like just keep doing it. So to simplify it, like remain curious.
Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
What an absolute joy this chat has been.
I've had a great time. Thanks for having me.
You're pretty bloody special.
Thank you so much. It's really nice.
And I'm very excited to see what happens with Beyond the Weather, because I think that, this in an increasingly disconnected world, something as small as asking an intentional question is the difference between community and not. So thank you for
pleasure
creating an opportunity for us to connect. I can't wait. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.